Well, it's a very good morning from him, and it's a very good morning from me. I hope all is well with you. Welcome to my mortgage live stream. I'm Paul Archer, but you know that. Welcome to very late November. Christmas is only, 5 weeks away? Is it 4, 5 weeks, or what it is really? But it's getting busy, and the shops are getting excited, or the shop owners are getting excited, I think, in the retail anyway. But of course, loads have been going on in the last sort of week or so. We've got quite a bit going on this week as well. It did tickle me actually, because the UK government, the current government that we have, stated a couple of years ago, a year ago, after the pandemic, that they wanted to bring more retirees back to work. Do you remember the pandemic made that a lot of people in their sort of late 50s, 60s decided they wanted to retire, give it all up. And why not? They got the vote, they had the pension. Because since then, inflation's rocketed, and the government have encouraged them to go back to work. And then remember, they changed the pension rules where you could put more money into your pension, and the pension pot cap was abolished. But anyway, they succeeded last week, didn't they? Because they got David Cameron back. He was retired, wasn't he? Decent Dave. He's back on the cabinet now as Lord Chipping Norton, I think it is. That's where Shelley was born, I think. But there we are. You can't make this stuff up. So 4 guys at the helm now, all male. You've got Rishi, of course, chief guy. You've got Jeremy at the Chancellor of Exchequer. Jeremy Hunt's busy this week with the autumn statement. Let's see what he does this week. We've got Dave, of course, Decent Dave as Foreign Secretary. I think it's James over at Home Secretary as well. So an all-man team. So I don't know whether that will continue and last into the election. We'll have to wait and see, won't we? But that's politics. But of course, the autumn statement isn't just politics. It's also about our sector. Financial services sector, of course, dominated by that. And I know what's going to happen. Maybe there's going to be some help for first-time buyers. They usually tend to, don't they, prior to an election? And why not? We'll see what goes on there, shall we? Might be tinkering with inheritance tax, might not. So we'll just have to see what goes on. But things are looking better in the economy, of course. We've got interest rates settling nicely now. There's talk of them going down in May next year. A lot of people talking about that now. Who knows? So that's good news. So the froth is starting to bubble down now, and interest rates are starting to drop. The fixed rates, particularly 2 and 5 year fixed rates. So that's good news for our sector, isn't it? Enough of that. Let's get on to a couple of topics for you. Got something from Wales today for you on the Welsh Mortgage Rescue Scheme, which I think is really, really good. We've got that to share with you. Then I've got a little excerpt for you on the myths of common law couples. So that's coming up for you very shortly. So let's go over to the small whiteboard, because I want to give you a bit of an update on the Welsh scheme. What is the Welsh scheme? Well, first of all, we're talking here about Wales. We're talking here about the Help to Stay Wales, as they call it. It's the Welsh Mortgage Support Scheme, which has been released or introduced, call it what you like, from November 23. So it's bang up to date. And if you're based in Wales, or if you have clients who have property in Wales, or you just want to know what's going on, then this is for you. So what's happening then with the Wales? Well, the Welsh government, of course, which control many, many things, which is absolutely the right thing to do, have come up with £40 million. So a fair sum of money, 40 million, not a huge amount. And what they're doing is they're helping people who own properties in Wales to stay owning their property. And they're offering a low cost, so it's not expensive, equity share scheme, effectively, is what it is, equity share scheme. So think Help to Buy. The old Help to Buy, where the government chipped in to help people buy new houses by having a second charge. They're doing exactly the same thing. So it's designed for people who are struggling with their mortgage. So how does it work, really? Well, it's quite simple. It starts now. There's 40 million in the pot, so quite a bit of money. So here's your property. The property, first of all, has to be based in Wales, in the Welsh border, which makes absolute sense, and you need to be in a repossession risk. So your risk of repossession, so that needs to be proven, doesn't it, through the lender, because it's all done through lenders, this scheme as well, which I think is a good thing. So obviously somebody's struggling to pay their mortgage, you might have missed a few payments, and you've probably applied for SME, or you've not been successful for SME, or whatever it is, but you're in repossession risk. And what happens is that the Welsh government will then give you the money to support yourself, to pay off your arrears, etc. But they'll set up a second charge on the property. So let's just put this here for you. They'll put a second charge on the home because the first charge, of course, would be your mortgage, which is under possession. So they'll give you a second charge, and it's 5 years interest free. So that's pretty cool, isn't it? The government SME system, of course, charges interest, so be careful of that one. But this one's 5 years interest free, which ain't bad with interest rates being high, is it? After that period, you have to pay it off, or there'll be some interest to pay on it probably after that period of time. So what else needs to be in the picture? Well, properties of below £300,000 is what they're looking at. So no more than £300,000 purchase price or valuation of the property, which is, pretty generous property price, I think, for this kind of scheme. And the people that own the property, so let's put our couple down here there. Let's put our couple down here who own the property. The maximum joint income that they're both on can't exceed 67,000. There you go. Now, these figures always change, don't they? Of course they do. Inflation kicks that into touch. But 67 grand income is the most that the two people or the household can have effectively to apply for this scheme. And I think it's a really good scheme. Well done, Wales. Well done, Wales. 40 million is not a huge amount of money, let's be honest about it. And it's probably very much a last resort because people have got their mortgage charter. They've got the support for mortgage interest. There's plenty of things to help people, of course, but sometimes people slip through the net. And this is a way of getting the Welsh Government to help out interest free. So well done, Wales. Good scheme. So I know that's not going to be in a CMAP exam, that. I wouldn't have thought it would creep into the syllabus. But at least it's something that you, as a mortgage professional, should know about. Hope that's been useful. Bye. Well done. Okay. Nice little update there for you on that. Of course, we've got Jeremy Hunt's autumn statement on Wednesday, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. And he may do something rather exciting. We don't know. He might not do anything. We'll see how he gets on. He's got next year, of course, to play with, hasn't he, before the election. But he's tinkering, they think, with inheritance tax. He might do some tinkering to taxes here and there. He can't do a major change because we need all the money we can get because our debt bills are horrendous at the moment. Government debt's costing a fortune. But a lot of people, they get a little bit confused with common law and all those things. So I want to give you what I've called the myths of common law financial security. There you go. Let's head over there and we'll do this one for you. The myths of common law financial security. So what have we got here? Well, we've got a couple of people who are together in love or whatever, I don't mind, but they're a couple, and they have decided not to be married or to have a civil partnership. So they are cohabiting effectively. And what we used to call, I think there's always been a myth, common law. What people used to think, you see, is if you were common law, it meant that you had all the rights of a married couple. Let's take that out. You had all the rights of a married couple. And it's completely wrong. There's no such thing as common law. So if you are cohabiting and you haven't opted for marriage or civil partnership, then it's not so good on taxes. There's some financial insecurities. And I've got 5 things for you if you find yourself in that situation that you should be thinking about doing in order to make yourself more financially protected. And as a mortgage and protection advisor, you should be recommending these things. You should be talking about these things in your fact find. If you don't, I don't think you're doing a proper job. So what are these 5 things then? Well, let's put a few picks up there for you. The first one is you must make a will. Everybody should make a will anyway. Of course they should. We know that. And each of you should make your own will as to where you want the money to go on your death. Because on your death, all your estate, all your money goes into your own estate and then gets inherited under the law of intestacy to your own family. Or, of course, not your partner, unless you've made a will. The will, of course, will determine that. And what you should do as well is in the will, you should have a letter, a dear sir, madam letter, which confirms your wishes as well as the will. It's kind of like a backup, and that should be available, sealed, of course, It's like one of those legal programs where the solicitor opens up the letter, just to make sure, because family members of your cohabitee might argue with your will, and you don't want that to happen at all. So that's the first thing you need to do. Number two is you need to own your property properly. Now, we know about this as mortgage advisors, don't we? We know that property can be owned in joint names. There's your property, like my little big front door there. There's your property. Can be owned in joint names. And of course, the point is, the couple that have come to talk to you who are not married or civil partnership, they are buying the property jointly and taking out a joint mortgage. And it's how they own the property, not the mortgage. The mortgage is jointly and severally liable. So, they're both liable for the mortgage payments. But the house can be owned two ways: tenants in common or joint tenancy. We know about that. Now, you've just got to make a choice as to what you want to do, because if you go tenants in common, then you can go 50-50 ownership. So long as you've made a will that puts your half of the property to whoever you think it should go to, then if it's tenants in common 50-50, you have the ability to choose that. If you go for joint tenancy, then the other person gets the house straight off if you die, without any faffing around. They just own the house. And actually, that might be what you want. There's nothing wrong with that. Talk to your lawyer about it. But you don't really need to talk to a qualified lawyer about it. It's not that complicated, is it? But people need to know the options. Really is key. The other thing is, if the house is owned in one person's name, that's not uncommon. A couple come together later in life. The lady, for example, might own the property, or the chap might own the property in his or her own name, and the cohabitee just moves in. In that case, of course, you'll have no protection at all if you've just moved in. You could try and get what they call a beneficial interest, prove a beneficial interest, because I paid the bills, I paid for the food, but you'd have to go to the courts for that, and it may not be successful. So ownership of the property is really important. So we talked there about tenants in common, don't we? Tenants in common versus joint tenancy. Now, another one for you: pensions. Again, as a mortgage and protection advisor, you may not be giving advice on pensions. Well, probably you won't, because you're not able to, not authorized to, but you can talk about them. And I think you should talk about them too. You should have the confidence to talk about them. Maybe have a conduit to refer somebody if you want to. Ultimately, guys, you really should get yourself qualified in that sector. Even if you don't do a huge amount of it, you should get yourself qualified and authorized for it. Because then you can look after your client then. It changes everything. You stop doing transactions and you become a client advisor. It makes a big, big difference. And I think you should do that, especially with artificial intelligence and all these, and this computerization and all this AI stuff, taking away some of the bog standard mortgage work that you've probably relied upon. You've got to look at the future. Anyway, pensions. Pensions, you see, are single things. Pensions are single things. They are not joint. So whether you're married, single, whatever, you will have your own pension in your own name. What you should do here is you should decide what you want to do with the pension money if one of you was to die. Now, if it's a personal pension, of course, it's a return of the fund. If it's some kind of occupation scheme, you might have death in service. But what you should do here is what they call an expression of wish. There you go. An expression of wish is, all intents and purposes, a letter, it's a form, which tells the trustees of the pension where you want the money to go on your death. You see, pensions are automatically looked after by trustees, discretionary trustees. The pension fund arranges it automatically. And when you die, the pension trustees have to make a decision as to where the money should go. And they're pretty good at making those decisions. This is what they do for a living, isn't it? But you see, if you do an expression of wish, you say, well, I wish to have Mike to receive all my money on my death, or whatever it is. And they will abide by that. Don't have to, but they will often abide by the expression of wish. So make sure that your customers have done that, or changed it, maybe if their situation has changed a tad. Number 4 for you. Number 4. Let's put this in a different colour so we can get a bit of contrast going. Life assurance. Now, life assurance, again, you may be a mortgage and protection advisor, so you will do a life assurance policy, DTA, whatever, for the couple buying the property. And what we tend to do wrongly is we go for joint policies, and there's nothing wrong with that. A joint policy, is where if one dies, the other person receives the money, and they then use that to pay off the mortgage or whatever it is. So nothing wrong with that. But if they're a couple, if they're two people and they're cohabiting, again, to protect yourselves, you should really do single policies. And there could be argued that you haven't given the right advice if you don't. So you should do two single policies. There you go. So scrap the joint life idea and go for two single policies for whatever amount you want. Yeah. That's a subject for another day, isn't it? There's nothing wrong with doubling the mortgage, having mortgage protected by both in single names. We're talking here of term assurance. It's cheap as chips if somebody's young as well. So what you must do, of course, is you must make sure you put those into trust. Absolutely essential. Each one of those goes into trust, probably for the other person, because the whole point of these is to cover the mortgage as well. If it's critical illness, don't forget you have to do a split trust, which means that if you get ill, you get the dough, rather than it going to the other person. They split it down the middle. So make sure you put those into trust. So that's number 4 for you. Now, the fifth idea, well, it's not really an idea, really, it's more of a concept, is inheritance tax. Because as effectively single people, they don't have the inheritance tax exemption. Now, under inheritance tax rules, if you are a married or a civil partnership, your spouse, which is the person we talk about, can receive all of your assets without incurring inheritance tax. So if you're in a civil partnership, two of you, and one of you dies, you can pass everything you own to your spouse, and he or she then owns that and has no need to pay inheritance tax. But the great thing is, both of you get a nil rate band and a main residence nil rate band too. And obviously the figures change on that, but both of you have one, which means you can use both numbers to offset inheritance tax on your joint estate. If you're single or cohabiting, you only have one each. And if you died and passed your money on to your cohabitee, then they would be liable to pay inheritance tax. Obviously, you've got your own exemption, but they'd have to pay it. They're not able to defer it, which is okay. Nothing you can do to change that unless Jeremy Hunt decides to change it in the budget. There's not an awful lot you can do about that. I suppose the answer is to get married or enter into a civil partnership. Civil partnerships seem to have lost their shine really since marriage is allowed for everybody now. Maybe to look into that, but that's something for you to work through. Now, you're not giving advice here as a mortgage and protection advisor. You're chatting things through with people, and if they want to talk about it further, then they go to a lawyer for that. For example, an accountant. They go to a financial advisor for this. They go to a wills expert for that. Obviously, you can do the trusts and things like that. So, but think about putting all under one roof for you. Anyway, enough of that. There's an update for you on common law in security. It did remind me actually of a financial services word or phrase. Have you heard of it? I'll show you this on slide actually because you'll like this. Yeah, I put it on the slide for you. I don't know if you remember this one. Don't let the tax tail wag the investment dog. I always get that wrong when I pronounce it. What it means, of course, is when you're giving investment advice to customers, clients, and you're looking at tax efficient investments, you mustn't let the tax efficiency dictate where you put your money. There's many other factors. That's the whole point. And I figured that one. I thought, well, hold on. Don't let the marriage decision wag the marriage dog. I tried to sort of work it around in that way. But again, if you're giving advice, don't let their cohabiting status dictate what you do. That's not what we do. We don't recommend people's personal lives, do we? That would be a bad thing if we started doing that. Anyway, hope that's been useful for you on that one. Quite a useful little topic. Great. Well, we're going to wrap up now and say our farewells, which is great. And look forward to seeing you again next week. This time next week, of course, we might have a really juicy financial statement. Maybe he's going to abolish stamp duty up to £1 million for a year, and that'd be great. That will certainly pick up the housing market again, won't it? Just make house prices go up again, which is not good. Or maybe he'll do some sort of whizzy thing for first-time buyers. Some kind of really amazing discount or something, but we'll see what he's got coming up. Although he has leaked most of it to the BBC, because that's what they do, isn't it? And enough of that. I hope you have a fantastic next few days. Don't forget the QR code there to get onto our database. I've got my CMAP2 podcasts being delivered at the moment, so you might want to get onto those. But again, we got the link in the show notes, if that's the right thing, or the comments box below if you're on YouTube, so you can get onto our mailing system. Other than that, I'm going to wish you to have a fantastic few days, to enjoy yourselves, and I'll catch you all next week.